Well, I'm going to do a little reading here off of the Chris Martenson Peak Prosperity video of the day. At the top of the screen here, it's not the flu. And this has been known for more than 50 days. And a side note here that I can add is recently it's been reported that a number of our U.S. senators knew about this and were selling their stock. They're liquidating their stockholders in front of this. And one of the U.S. senators even went down and briefed one of his clubs, the Tar Heel Club or something. And I'm sure all of his rich supporters were selling into the market before everybody else had a chance as well. And now we know why the U.S. government has been dragging its feet. They're letting their rich supporters get prepared before all the rest of us. So the first point here is this virus has a very high serious complication rate. These are people that are going to need treatment, and that number is at 15%. And this is and I've been following this Chris since he started talking about this virus. Actually, I've been following him for many years in a row, but he's been moving along with it, and he is probably the most sophisticated reporter on the virus, at least that I'm aware of. So this is 15%, and 5% of these are going to require intensive care. And all these treatments are very complicated and complex. Thinking about 15%, well, 15% of how many? I've read reports as high as 70% are going to get this virus. Way more than the hospital beds can accommodate will be serious. Way more. And that's where the tragedy is. Chris used to end his videos on, it could have been different if we wouldn't have dragged our feet. But in light of these senators selling their stock, it couldn't be any different, because that's the way our system is. The rich rule over the rest of us. This virus, this coronavirus, this species or this mutant coronavirus is much more deadly than the flu. It's about 20 times more deadly. Very high RO, way over 3, maybe as high as 6.7. Now I believe what that is how many people will one person that's infected transmit to. So if one person has this virus, they'll transmit it to at least 3 people. And you do the math with exponential growth, it doesn't take long, and most people are going to be infected. It spreads asymptomatically. And I believe what that means is before any symptoms are apparent. So once somebody gets the virus, and I don't know if it's a matter of hours or days or immediately, but once somebody gets the virus, even though they're not showing appearances of being sick, they can spread it. They can transmit it. It spreads via droplets and aerosols. And I was watching some video a couple weeks ago, and even when somebody's talking at you, you can't see it, but there's some spray coming out of their mouth. It's so fine. You can get infected by that. I've read that you should be at least 6 feet away from people, and there was one report where somebody had it on a bus and someone 12 feet away became infected. But that could have been, it jumped that fast and went from one person to another and to another, and maybe, it transmits, as soon as it's on you, it's transmitting to somebody else, or maybe there's so many on you that they keep jumping. I don't know. I'm just following along with all this. Long incubation period, up to 24 days, maybe 27 days. And I think that you might be able to transmit almost that entire time. So if you do get sick, don't go by anybody for probably a whole month. Matter of fact, we're all going to get locked down anyways. We're 5 days away of such a terrible situation that there's going to be some draconian measures implemented to stop this thing. If we would have done that 3 weeks ago, we wouldn't be talking about this today. But our system just can't adapt that fast. Just can't do it. You know, going back to the rich people, they got to make their money, right? No natural immunity in the herd. So what herd immunity means is so many people are immune that even if the virus is out there, if I transmit it to somebody that's already immune, it doesn't go anywhere. It stops right there. The immune system has these little, everything is so tiny, and I don't know technical words, but it's got these little guys that come in and surround the virus and stop it from even moving. And then they bring it somewhere, or maybe it's a T cell that brings it to this thing that eats it, and then whatever has it eats it, and that's it, it's gone. So if somebody transmits to somebody who's immune, it stops there. Because barely anybody, I guess some people have survived and are now immune. We're hoping that they have immunity, but they're now immune. There's so few people that there's nothing to stop this. It's just going to explode into the population. Exploding right now. The way Martin said has sent it over the weeks and weeks is he calls it case. So cases reported here, cases reported there, cases reported over here. Then cluster. That case clusters into a bunch of people being transmitted. And at the end of this, it's boom. Everybody gets it almost at once. Okay, no vaccine available. So no prior vaccines to work from. And prior SARS vaccines are worse than nothing. So they're going to try to implement some type of a vaccine. This thing has already mutated twice. I read a study where it's mutated maybe as many as 49 times already. And I don't know, I'm just reading this stuff. If this thing's mutating like that, I don't believe vaccines work that well anyway. And, how many people are going to die from this new vaccine that hasn't ever been tested on anything? It might be worse than the disease. But going back to the vaccines, if there's all these mutant viruses, it doesn't matter. What are you going to do, get 49 injections? So there's a report that smoking makes it worse. I also read some report that said if you smoke and your lungs are all full of this dirt, that the virus has a hard time negotiating through all that. So I don't know. Second exposure, far worse. So that is implying that there is no immunity from this virus. Anti-dependent enhancement pathway identified in MERS. And this enormously complicates vaccine development. So I would read that as someone who is immune to a particular strain of this mutant virus, and then another mutant virus comes along that's different, and the body is probably so weak that it just can't cope. And especially on our lifestyle in this country, we're eating all this junk food and hardly anybody's really healthy. So that just even more complicates this. All right, testing often results in false negatives. So that means it'll show up as you don't have it, but you really have it. Kids are spared. The younger you are, the more resistant. So I did read a study that there are quite a few 20 to 44-year-olds that are coming down with serious sickness now. And that's pretty tough. It's not what, in the beginning it said it's only the old people, but it's not just the old people. Men are affected 5 to 3 compared to women. So for every 3 women that are infected, 5 men are going to get infected. Lungs inflamed and full of mucus, not fibrotic. Sets this apart from SARS. So I'm not sure.
The state of Massachusetts from a lockdown.
That's him talking there. My screen shut off, so I turned it back on. And this persists on some surfaces for up to 9 days. So that I've read like stainless steel or plastic, something smooth, it'll stay alive on those surfaces for 9 days. On other like cloth, I think it's 3 days or something. I mean, I've read a lot. I've been watching a lot of video, and there are conflicting reports and conflicting statements. And I want to paraphrase everything I'm saying to you is that no one really knows. And, everything is so variable and complicated. I don't know if anybody is going to really anytime know. So, I was thinking about past civilizations. This could be how civilizations have all died in the past, or maybe not all, maybe some, or, it's probably all of them died this way because they've followed the similar trajectory where, in the beginning when you come into a new area, the land of milk and honey, and you have all the fertility, and you're growing crops on this fertility, and the crops are real healthy, and over time you degrade that fertility and the crops become less nutritious, and you get to a point, and we've actually, in this civilization, we brought this way farther beyond what past civilizations have by using these chemicals and these GMO seeds. We've developed these crops that can grow in nutritionless, lifeless soil, and the way they grow is because they are fed this chemical fertilizer. And we are biological beings. These chemical fertilizers are not enough for us to be healthy. So now here we are in civilization. We've got to this point where there isn't no longer any healthy food. And now an opportunistic virus comes along. They see all these nice, juicy, carb-rich people, and they come and chew us up. So we could be at that stage. I don't know for sure. I'm just speculating, just kind of bringing this forward a little bit. For sure, this isn't going to be nice. For sure, it's going to be ugly and chaotic. And I'm thinking a lot about this, and it could be 3 to 5 years of chaos and ugliness and adaptation before we finally smooth this out. And we are going to be living a much slower paced lifestyle after this is over. It's coming now. I don't see any miracle. And it's possible. Well, miracle is actually just something that comes out of thin air, so nobody knows if something like that will happen. I mean, I'm not going to bank on a miracle. I probably shouldn't have said that word. But that's about right. One more sentence. Patients with mild cases no longer infective 10 days after first symptoms. Well, that's something positive. So if you have it and it's mild, you're no longer infective after 10 days. So I guess we'll end this video on a positive note. I was trained that way. I did some entrepreneurial courses, and the last video I told you about the Austrian economics course I took, and I do own a small business, so I'm practicing what I'm preaching here right now. But on the sales side of it, if you're going to talk to someone about negatives and positives, you bring out the negatives first, so that you can end the conversation with a positive on a good note, so they don't reject everything that you say on the negative side, because we are programmed to be happy. We want to be happy, and anything that makes us unhappy, we have a hard time digesting this. A lot of people just cannot possibly even think about something that causes unhappiness. I don't know how they're dealing with this right now. With the president, he was on more than an hour today. I mean, we're not president and his team with their press briefing. It might have been almost 2 hours. I'm not sure. It was a long time I was listening to it. The regular people have to finally be starting to think this is something real. So whereas my trajectory of figuring this all out has been kind of a slow taper like this, because I've been following it since it started in January, just real slow, these people here have been at this line, and now they're at the end, and now this is what they got to cope with. I think they're going to have a hard time coping. So if you are in denial and you're starting to figure this out, you're going to panic. And I had a video on panicking a few days ago. Go ahead and panic for a couple hours or half a day or something. Get it out of your system, and then it's time to go to work. And my promotion is the first thing you got to start thinking about is starting a garden. Worst case scenario is food is going to be in short supply. Everybody starts a garden. We will not even come close to having a shortage. If even 10% of the people start a garden and do it proficiently, we're out of the woods in terms of being food. So if you have some space where you can start a garden, please start a garden now. That's the name of the video I put up a couple of days ago. So I'm going to add this to my series, my playlist that's entitled Permaculture Concept Course. And that's the one I'm putting up, the recent videos where I'm talking about starting a garden. I'm actually not talking about, I am talking, but I'm also drawing schematics out on a piece of paper. And I'm doing the best I can to get this information into people's hands that haven't done this before and are starting with a lawn, with just a lawn grass. So that's my point, is to get people that are new to gardening, give them some concepts to start with so that they can go forward with it. You know, people who have already gardened, you know, I might be able to, I mean, maybe I'll sharpen them up, maybe, you know, there's a lot of people that know how to do this. So there's some people that just, I mean, they understand all this already, they don't really need to go through this. So I'm working towards helping people that haven't gardened before. So with that, I'll read the last sentence again for the good news. Patients with mild cases no longer infective 10 days after first symptoms. That is pretty good news. Okay, we'll see what I come up with tomorrow, if I'm still alive.